Hello and welcome to an election special of the Big Picture. Over the last few weeks, we at the Rajya Sabha TV are looking at various important issues which are not part of the election discourse but are nevertheless important for the country. These are issues which will face any new government which comes into place next month and which will require its attention. Today we are looking at the issue of genetically modified crops and the entire controversy surrounding it and how important it is for a political consensus to emerge on such issues. However, over a period of time, the issue of GM crops have acquired political, legal and moral dimensions apart from technical issues involved. Different sections of the government have approached it differently and so have experts. Now that the issue is before the Apex Court, all eyes are on the Apex Court, which is in the process of hearing the matter. A court-appointed technical expert committee has also been divided on the issue, with majority favouring an indefinite ban on field trials till a regulatory system has been put in place. A law which was passed in Lok Sabha recently to set up the regulatory mechanism has lapsed now. We will discuss all the dimensions of the issue and see how the next government can approach it in the larger interests of the people. We will discuss all this over the next 1 hour with Dr. K.C. Bansal, Director of the National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources, which is a body under the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, Dr. Suman Sahai, Chairperson of the Gene Campaign, Vipul Mudgal, Project Director, CSDS, Gargi Parsai, Senior Journalist who has been covering agriculture issues for several years, and on the phone line from Lucknow is Professor Sudhir Panwar, President of the Kisan Jagriti Manch and also a Professor in Biotechnology in Lucknow. Welcome to all of you. Before we start the discussion, let's have a look at a small story done by RSTV on the issue. Okay, Professor Bansal, first coming to you. Now that the issue is before the Supreme Court, and there are different things which have come up there. The technical expert committee has given a different kind of report. It's been divided with one person saying one and the remaining saying other. Now, where do we stand on this issue? How important? The government has allowed some field trials, but there is a problem now. So, how important is this issue to be resolved at this point of time?
See, first of all, it is important for any research to be conducted in a manner that it should be. And for the research on GM crops, it is mandatory, and which is a part of the research that we should allow, these field trials for genetically modified crops in a confined manner, which is a part of the research and which has to be done under field conditions only.
Which has to be done at field conditions, but there is still, you initially had permission, then it was withdrawn, then another minister came, he has allowed it again. Why all this confusion? See, why is there so much confusion within the government about this issue?
See, that's a different issue, but if you ask me.
But that seems to be the main issue as of now.
That's an issue, I understand it. Yes. But if you are talking to a scientist, who has got expertise, let us say, in this area, wherein we chip in, we try to, educate people in a way that if there is a particular way of doing any experiment, that after you have introduced a gene, ultimately you would like to have a product which is able to express that trait which is important for the farmers to get the benefit, which the farmers probably did not have the advantage to get that trait through all technologies available so far using conventional methodologies which are in practice all the time. But if suppose we have not been able to somehow deliver the product to the farmers for a particular trait, for example, cotton, BT cotton, insect resistance was not possible through conventional breeding.
Right.
So if you have to develop a GM crop like BT cotton, then there is a protocol. We have to follow through that protocol, and the GM trial in the field is part of that particular protocol.
Professor Bansal, please let me know, the Agriculture Ministry has been in favour of this for quite some time. Why is it that the Agriculture Ministry has not been able to convince the Environment Ministry till very recently about the need and importance of these field trials?
See, that's important. I agree with you that there should be some kind of a consensus, but at the same time it will depend on that how much are we aware of the scientific facts, how much are we really making efforts to make aware, that what way we are doing is the right way or is the acceptable way and it's totally scientific way. So until unless we have that kind of a dialogue and a discussion with all the concerned ministries and even those who would like to be a part of it, it will be very difficult to really say that what could be the reason behind it.
So that dialogue has not been really successful.
I think that is important. I have no idea whether there was any such dialogue or not before such decisions were taken. But what I feel also is so that I think that kind of a dialogue based on the perception of each one of us, based on the scientific facts which are available before us, I think there should be decision taken accordingly.
Suman?
Yeah.
You think there's the problem is the dialogue, the problem is awareness among different ministries, the problem is convincing the agriculture ministry being able to convince the environment ministry. Where does the problem lie?
That's only one part of the problem. It's not only about awareness, and it's not as though people outside of the scientific community that is dealing with this does not know the facts. There is a whole body of science happening outside of institutions as well. What is the situation today? Today we have come to a block for a number of very unfortunate situations that were created. The Environment Ministry, which is responsible for biosafety, has to exercise its options on the issue of biosafety. And a lot of what is being discussed today is the question of biosafety. There should also be discussion on which crop is needed and which trait is needed. That discussion does not take place. The situation that finds itself today, the Supreme Court, after a writ petition by Gene Campaign, asked for a technical expert committee. That technical expert committee was set up. The committee's reports have still not been acted on. So, the matter is sub judice. Since the matter
is not been accepted by the government.
Yeah, so this neither been accepted.
So, in fact, the petition before the Supreme Court right now is to ensure that the report is accepted, right?
Gene Campaign's petition, which was heard yesterday, an application to the original petition, day before and yesterday, is that the court should examine the technical expert committee and accept it, and the field trial release that has been given by the Environment Minister must be held in abeyance.
Right.
The technicality of the issue is that the matter is still sub judice, and no minister can, while the matter is sub judice and before a final decision has been taken, can override what is happening in the court and then give release for
why was there such haste?
That's a good question. Why was there such haste? I think the former Environment Minister, Jayanti Natarajan, had acted very correctly, and her position also in her submission to the Prime Minister was everything should wait till the matter is decided in the court, since it is being heard in the apex court, it is being heard in the Supreme Court. So, that is what the technicality is, and I do not think that it behoves anybody and not a member of the government to jump the judicial process and take unilateral action.
Gargi, you have been following these issues for quite a long time. How do you look at this? Why do you think that there was such haste? I mean, after successive environment ministers have been expressing some kind of reservation over this, the new environment minister comes, allows this field trials to happen. What is the politics? What happened in the government?
The politics, I'll go backwards. I'll answer your question first. The politics is that the elections came. And there was a pressing need to take a decision before the elections, so that the decision would be binding on the next government, whichever that government comes. Now, when such a haste, decisions are taken in such a haste, there can be only one reason for is that it's political, it's totally political. Alongside this, what was happening in the court is that a technical expert committee was appointed by the apex court, a 5-member committee. The committee gave its first report, also called the interim report. The Agriculture Ministry then came into the picture and said that this does not have an agriculture representative.
Right.
The court allowed a 6th person to be appointed on the committee.
Right.
This person, Dr. Baroda, who was a former Director General of Indian Council for Agriculture Research, he did not sign the main report, the final report. He gave his own report.
Right.
And in that report, of course, he followed the line of the government. And that is before the court now. The court has to take a view on whether it will follow the majority report or this report given by now. At the same time, the Ministry of Environment, under which the Genetical Engineering Appraisal Committee comes, is responsible for regulation of the trials, and everything to do with regulation comes under this ministry. Right. So, the earlier minister, Mrs. Jayanti Natarajan, had taken the view of principle based approach towards any open release of GMOs.
Right.
And she differed with the Ministry of Environment and the Minister, Mr. Sharad Pawar, on this issue.
Agriculture.
And yes. she said that this is the mandate of this ministry, and therefore this ministry was not in agreement with the agriculture ministry.
Right.
And the matter was standing there waiting to be decided upon by the court vis-a-vis the technical expert committee and Dr. Paroda. There are allegations, not allegations, everybody knows Dr. Paroda has been on the committees of several institutions on which the industry is either on the board, or he has been on the board of the industry. So there have been
conflict of interest issues.
Conflict of interest issues against Dr. Paroda. Now, while all these things were there in the court for the court to decide upon, the new Minister of Environment, he jumped the gun and he said GEAC had taken certain decisions on certain crops for field trials or whatever,
right,
which were kept in abeyance by the Mrs. Jayanti Natarajan.
Right.
And he said that no need to keep them in abeyance, let's go ahead.
Right.
Just on the eve of elections.
Right.
So it's for you to read the meaning, and I'm saying it is very, very political.
Okay. I think we have Professor Sudhir Panwar on the phone line from Lucknow. Professor Panwar, how do you look at this issue? Now, has this become a purely legal matter that we need to wait for this, or are there still technical issues involved? Are there the experts' view needs to be taken? How do you look at the Environment Ministry's decision at this point of time?
I think it is more legal than it is scientific issue more than legal issue, and everybody knows that the world of science is divided on the issue of genetically modified organism or crop. But the bad luck is this, that we could not evolve our stand up to now. After 10 years or 12 years, we are not clear whether we are in favor of genetically modified crops or not. But in the haste, we have allowed this GM cotton, and field survey told us, and there are several surveys that farmer benefited from this BT cotton.
Yes.
So in this backdrop, we have to think what will be the way out from this controversy.
Yes. Vipul, how do you look at this? There are moral, ethical dimensions to it also, which
Absolutely.
you people at the CSDS have been. I know you organized a conference some time back, and you discussed all these issues. These moral and ethical dimension, you think has been taken into consideration by the people in authority?
Not at all. I think it is fundamentalism from both sides. One side says GM over my dead body. There is no question. I'll not allow even a discussion on it. And if you do it, you are like enemy of mankind. And the other side, they believe that you understand nothing of science. This is the only way for the uplift of the poor and humanity and things like that. So it's some kind of a fundamentalism on both sides which we are seeing. What are the issues involved? If you see directly, the most important issue here is of human health.
Yes.
What kind of products we are raising, these products or these crops or fruits or vegetables or rice or cotton or whatever we have is finally going to be consumed by human beings.
Right.
So do we know enough about it that is there to be known? I mean, I'm not saying that you know everything, but at least know sufficiently so that you know the hazards of this. This is the human health aspect. Then there is an environmental aspect where you want to know whether this has any long-term impact on the soil productivity, on issues of environment, on other organisms, on all kinds of insects and larvae and birds and bees who are there in the environment. Is it going to have any impact on? Once again, I'm not saying that go to a finality, but there should be some understanding of that. That is where your question of ethics comes. It's not just bioethics, but it is like general ethics that, I mean, are we as human beings, we are in charge of nature, we will not allow anybody else to do anything else. Then there are economic aspects, whether and the agricultural aspect.
And also the cost aspect also.
The cost aspect, absolutely.
As far as the seeds are concerned, the cost aspect also. Professor Bansal, would you like to answer this?
Yes, I would like to
ethical issues and for one ethical issue, the second the health issues. Is there enough information in available in the public domain for people to take a considered decision on this?
See, I think what the points is raised is certainly has a concern, but you must also kindly appreciate with regard to biosafety, to human health or to the environment, how much do we know, as has been pointed out?
Right. How much do we know?
You know what? There is an international agreement. India is not the only country talking about these kind of issues of GM crops and trials. You know, there are now today at least 27 countries already growing GM crops. So many countries working on GM crops. So there is an international agreement on all these biosafety issues and protocols, whether it will have a good impact or a bad impact, or what kind of impact would it have on human health, what are those protocols, what are those procedures we do to follow those. Cartagena Protocol on biosafety, for that matter, has listed all those, and keeping those international agreements, India is following all those international standards with regard to biosafety, with all the available knowledge today.
Can I just come in on
for
this?
example,
Yeah,
also,
sure,
and
sure.
you know, that's one. Second, I would address, you know, the issue of, let's say, environmental biosafety.
Right.
Environmental biosafety, you're talking about, let's say, effect on non-target organisms. Okay. For example, are we killing our friendly insects when we're talking of killing, you know, a particular bollworm if you are having a BT cotton?
Right.
You know what? It is rather precisely, we are only killing the bollworm when you're talking of BT cotton. No friendly insect is killed at all. Whereas if you're using pesticide, compared with the pesticide, please, how much bad effect, environmental effect it would have against a BT cotton, you know, and there it's killing all insects, whether friendly or non-friendly, you know, whereas this particular BT cotton, what kind of effect it will have, you know, it will only kill the, you know, that is the harmful insect, and that is the bollworm affecting the cotton.
No, the broad point that one is making is that it's not as simple as it appears to be. You see, look at the commercial aspect, look at the kind of companies which are involved. Now, you have you know, companies worth hundreds of billions of dollars, you know, thousands of billions of dollars, and they come into a country, they just buy up everybody, you know, and they compare apples with oranges. They give you statistics that you can't defend and you can't oppose. You know, they come and give advertisements, full page advertisements in newspapers, which is like an example of paid news, where they say that, you know, all the poverty is gone, farmers are moving around in SUVs.
Vipul, let me get Suman, let me get Suman's, you know, from what he is saying. Is that what he is saying? Is that enough information you have?
No, there is not. I think that is exactly what the dispute is. That, I mean, people are not stupid, Girish. Let's get that straight. People have concerns because there is not enough information available. Also, all scientists will know and acknowledge that testing for safety is not a simple, straightforward job. It's a very complex job to test for that.
No,
so to say that you've done everything.
No, I just want to ask you one question. BT cotton has been produced in this country for the last 10-12 years, and you know, from what we hear from the protagonists of GM crops, they say that it has had high yields, it has helped farmers a lot, and all that. From that experience, what are we getting out of that experience?
I think the first thing we're getting out of that experience is that it's not a flat one-way performance. There have been a lot of failures, there have also been successes, and I can refer you to the former director of the Cotton Research Institute in Nagpur, Keshav Kranti, who has summed this up and said where it has gone right and where it has gone wrong. Many of us who have been working on BT cotton have been pointing out over the years where it is going wrong, but have also pointed out where it is going right. Now, there's a whole science discussion which is difficult to come to a conclusion. But let me come back to the moral, ethical and other questions, and let me refer to that international agreement called the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety. Yes. The Cartagena Protocol says many things, none of which we are implementing. Like the Cartagena Protocol says something about labeling, it says you have to assess socio-economic impact, it says you have to assess the impact of this on traditional agriculture. We are not doing any of those things. My first point on this, if we want to reach a consensus, which is what you want to have this discussion on.
Absolutely.
If you want to reach a consensus, there has to be very open dialogue, and taking these positions like Vipul was saying, I agree, that's completely idiotic. You cannot have a totally pro and a totally anti position. Consensus will only then be possible when there is honesty and transparency at the level of government, at the level of science, at the level of civil society. You have to put aside your own favorite positions and talk on the basis of fact and probabilities. Does this country really need GM crops to solve the problem of hunger? The answer to that is probably an unequivocal no. because it cannot solve the problem of hunger in any country.
Professor Panwar, you know, this basic, you mentioned this earlier also, that this basic question has not been resolved in this country so far. But as far as the experiences go, what do you think of the experiences of, say, BT cotton, for instance?
No, there are the reports that farmers are benefited from this BT cotton. Their production has increased manifold. So in that field,
that hasn't happened.
I don't know whether science settles this question or not, but the field settles this question that BT has some improvement over the traditional crop.
Sorry, so you think that with the experience of BT cotton, it is time now for us to expand to other areas also, and all these objections which are coming in are something which can be overlooked, as the environment minister seems to have done?
No, I'm not saying so. No objection should be overlooked. Every objection should be addressed, but with unbiased mind, with scientific temper and scientific methods, like this Cartagena protocol. But the irony is this, that everybody has their own absolute position on this issue.
No,
they are pro and they are anti.
Professor Panwar, you are in this unique position. You are a professor of biotechnology. You are also a farmer's leader, where you will have to balance science as well as the actual realities on the ground. So how do you balance that?
No.
Because the problem which you face is actually the problem this country faces in trying to balance science as well as the realities on the ground.
Balance rests with scientific community, because farmer is not expert. He can tell you only that this product is beneficial for their productivity or not. He cannot assess it scientifically, or he cannot assess its uncertainties. But being a biotechnologist or the little bit knowledge of biotechnology, I can say that we can address these problems through that regulatory environment.
Regulatory environment, that's also another very key issue. Gargi, where does this regulatory mechanism which was sought to be put in place, now the bill has lapsed, the law, because it was passed in Lok Sabha, it has not gone through the Lok Sabha to the Rajya Sabha. So now, do you think that this whole process will have to begin all over again when a new government comes in place?
Regulatory authority was not a regulatory process. It was only a single window clearance process to facilitate the
industry,
allowing the industry to come into the field with their commercialization.
Right.
So it was only a single window clearance, and it was not even going to be covered by the RTI Act, for your information.
Okay.
So it's just as well that it has lapsed, as far as I am concerned.
That can be echoed widely.
Absolutely.
It's indefensible to keep it out of the RTI.
Secondly, about the BT cotton that you have been asking, the manufacturers have had to go into second or third generation because of the resistance that has come into the crop.
Right.
Secondly, it is a very, very capital intensive technology. It's not very good in water scarce area, as has been seen in Vidarbha. When the Prime Minister's package came in Vidarbha, where a lot of farmer suicides were taking place, then BT cotton seeds were introduced as part of that package. The farmers, whether they liked it or not, in this cotton growing belt had to go in for that. That hasn't stopped suicides,
right,
because the input costs have gone up. There may have been some increase in some places where the conditions are different. So, you have to see that Andhra Pradesh has rejected it totally. And
right,
somebody was talking about international agreements and all. So, just for your information, let me also tell you that Monsanto has withdrawn out of European Union recently, just a few months ago,
right,
because they were not able to get, they were not able to make any headway there. France has also withheld these trials of genetically modified crops to do the risk assessment and other such studies.
Right.
Risk assessment studies have to be really chronic and transgenerational. Over the generations you have to see. Are we going for that? We are not going for that at all. We are just glossing over everything. And because of this, there is no crony capitalism here, but there is a political and scientific and the industry nexus which is allowing this technology to be pushed into the country.
Okay, that's interesting, Gargi. There are questions which I think Professor Bansal will have to answer from what you have said. But before that, we need to go into a very short break now. Please keep watching. We'll come back very soon and continue this discussion. Welcome back. We are in the election special of the big picture, discussing the issue of GM crops. Professor Bansal, you need to answer some of the issues which has been raised by
these points
by Gargi and also Suman earlier.
No, these points have been raised before, but at the same time, we must appreciate that in the laboratories of government.
The question of France withdrawing, Monsanto, withdrawing from the from the European Union. These are all issues, because these are the questions which will keep cropping up, and unless you give convincing answers, you will not be able to satisfy the.
What is important here is, see, we should not be mixing up all the time the political issues with the scientific facts.
Right.
What is happening internationally, are we going to worry about too much, or what we are going to talk about more importantly, what is important for our country, food security and nutrition security, for our farmers' income. We're talking of BT cotton.
Suman said earlier that as far as farmer security, food security is concerned, that is not the solution. That's her opinion.
Not here, not anywhere.
The point is, if you please go around the world, we take something which is, one thing from the world experience. Why don't we take what is already happening with the world experience with regard to food security, or GM crops for that matter? Food security, we call it, suppose if I say papaya is good as a fruit, is it not a part of food or nutrition security? And is not papaya, GM papaya, being eaten raw, in anywhere in the world? Is it from any private sector? It's only from public sector, eaten raw. For the last many years, the whole industry which was devastated has been saved because of this particular technology. Now, talking about even BT cotton,
like give me instances where
in United States.
Yes.
United States, University of Florida, University of Hawaii. They have, one of the scientists, Dr. Roger Beachy, gave a technology in the beginning about coat protein mediated resistance to a particular virus, which became so famous, which was then translated into a product in the form of GM papaya, which is so famous. So the point is therefore, the point here therefore is that we should understand that here in India as well, we have all those laboratories, we have all those experts who are aware what is to be done, what's not to be done.
And I'm sure they are doing it. Small example, sir. I mean, whatever you are a scientist, I'm not.
No, please.
We are just trying to look at these issues very dispassionately in a detached manner.
Sure.
Now, about BT cotton, as has been said, and a lot of experiments have been carried out in India, we have seen that it went up, the yield went up between 2002 and 2007, and then it plateaued and started coming down. Now, there are many experiences, many farmers are saying that when they put their best foot forward, because they are buying very expensive seed, they are putting more labor in it, they are putting more water, more inputs
and
in
more
it.
Pesticides.
Perhaps also pesticides.
Because BT cotton will only protect, if at all, against one pest.
Would we learn from our own experience or not?
May I in fact take up this? The point here is, we have got.
Which will have to answer.
No. That's what I'm telling you. Please, we had how many million bales production? Up to 14 to 15 billion bale production. Today we are over 35 millions.
Also
around
the
35.
acreage in cotton has gone up.
The point acreage is now 11 million hectares. No,
yes, so
it has gone up
from
10 to 11 million hectare. The productivity has doubled. The production has gone more than double. We are exporting it. But also the point which was made, whether it will be
has the productivity gone down? Over the years?
See, the point is
between 2007 and 2012.
Yes. Point is, Mr. Vipul, what you are making. See, there are now different hybrids which are being grown by farmers.
Okay.
Each hybrid will have its own yield potential. Each hybrid will have its own performance under irrigated versus under rain-fed conditions or drought conditions. You cannot simply pick up, one shoes will not fit all. You have to have a particular hybrid for a particular region or an area or a technology, for So once we have, suppose we developed hybrids which are all good for irrigated regions, naturally they will be performing best under irrigated regions. How would we expect it doing better under drought conditions?
No, exactly. This is what
I mean,
Gargi said about, you know,
But this is well known. It's well known that under drought, rain-fed conditions,
so we should have to have a different hybrid
irrigated
there.
conditions
we have
done
to have,
better.
you know, Dr. Suman knows it better also. You have to have a different hybrid which will perform better under drought conditions.
Let me get Gargi. Gargi, how do you
I'm
react
asking,
to this?
that is what I am asking. Why was BT cotton seed introduced in Vidarbha, where farmers were committing suicides, when that was not the adequate region for that seed to be introduced? Even in Andhra Pradesh has rejected this seed.
Also here at this point, I'd like to remind everybody that in the initial years when BT cotton was given permission, it was not given permission for rain-fed areas. It was given permission only for irrigated areas. So why did the government allow its cultivation, and not only allow, but as Gargi says, promote?
And pushed it. And pushed it.
And
is there a scientific dimension to this, or is it a political dimension?
No, I see the
If it's political dimension, I will not ask you.
No,
he will never answer this. How can he answer as a scientist to the political dimension? He will not even look at it in the eye.
No, it's not that.
Yeah.
See, I will only take the scientific part of it, and that is that we have different genotypes which are adapted to different conditions.
Right.
You know, even human beings cannot be adapted to, if I, you know, go to North Pole, will I survive there? Probably not. You know, so therefore this is adaptation.
Girish, then why was the seed introduced all over the country? How did it come about?
How did it come
When
out?
there was
You
a
tell me.
policy.
You tell us, Gargi, why and how did it come out?
I'm telling you, it has been given a push by the
Been given a
government.
push.
It was a
Yes.
political. You see, it is a.
Yes,
It was
Let's
a.
also
It
be
was a
very
political
clear.
question. You see,
I'm telling
between-
you, when
yeah.
the Prime Minister's package came in the areas in the 4 states where farmers were committing suicide, that was part Vidarbha, Andhra Pradesh, I think Karnataka and one more state.
Yes.
Kerala was different, there were these plantations and all, and there as part of the package they said, oh, we must have seed replacement, 30% seed replacement, and in the name of seed replacement BT seeds were introduced. They were pushed.
I think,
you
yeah,
take it or leave
absolutely.
it. What could the farmers do?
My point was that when it comes to a policy, the country decides who the policy is for.
Right.
Once you decide that this is for the poor farmers of India, then you bring a seed bill. Then the first thing you want in that seed bill is what kind of protection we have for the farmer. Say if he buys an expensive seed and if it fails to sprout, are we going to get him some kind of a compensation or not? These are
Forget
the.
the
would you agree
compensation.
that
Farmers were being asked to go to the consumer courts to get a compensation.
and
then everything, the onus is on the farmer to prove why the seed did not sprout.
And
maybe he didn't give enough waterings.
Professor,
maybe he didn't use enough fertilizer.
Let me get Professor Panwar in on this. Professor Panwar, would you agree with that? That the farmers ultimately are left to fend for themselves. These kind of new experiments take place, and ultimately the farmers left to fend for themselves. This is one of the ethical and moral dimensions to the issue. Would you agree with that?
No, farmer, the consideration of farmer is not scientific. The consideration of farmer is only economic. So
Right.
if it suits economically, then it is selected. And the selection of crop, like you are discussing with Vidarbha, it is a complex one. If something is grown better in any area, then definitely it will be copied in another region.
Right.
Like in UP, some persons take this cotton seed illegally from the region Maharashtra and this Andhra Pradesh, and they grow it here in UP without any permission or without anything. So it is the economic criteria which is superimposed on any other criteria at the farmer's level.
And what happens when they suffer? Who comes to the rescue? Now you're talking about the illegal transplantation from Vidarbha to Uttar Pradesh. Now people like you or people who work with the farmers, are there any efforts being made to understand whether those kind of crops which maybe grow well in one state can be transplanted into other places, and because these are all very expensive seeds and things like that, and if it fails, who is responsible?
Well, firstly, UP is not a cotton
There are 2-3
area.
instances. In Bihar, I think some seed company has compensated farmers. Not only seed cost, but the crop cost. I think Nitish Kumar time, the farmers got compensated.
Which company and where?
Similarly, there is High Court decision in Karnataka.
You think
where farmers were compensated.
You think the companies have compensated the farmers?
After going to the court.
Not only the
As he is
court,
saying, we don't know.
It is the High Court judgment rather. It was covered in Outlook.
See,
Okay.
there are a couple
Suman.
of things that we need to raise, and I am coming back again to the issues that are fundamental to this discussion. The moral and the ethical issues combined with the whole question, as we see, even according to what Professor Panwar is saying, is come back to regulation.
Right.
And there is a moral question there. I think all of us know where the drawbacks in regulation are. We have all been witness to several instances of violation. Let me give you an example. When rice was being cultivated in Jharkhand, violating every single biosafety norm, no containment, no indication, no nothing, and we documented this process and brought it to the notice of the GAC. The GAC, instead of going after the party that was conducting these field trials in violation, sends a show cause notice to Gene Campaign. Now, I ask you, where is the intention seen of the government? And let us also be completely honest. The scientific community is completely politicized. I do not think that politicizing the scientific community is necessarily wrong. A scientific community cannot work in a vacuum, but the scientific community must exercise its moral imperative to work in the interest of the public good and not on the direction of the government. I think where that is going wrong.
Let Professor Bansal
Can I add to this?
The research which is
One
being
second,
carried
Gargi,
out,
let him answer this.
See, the major goal of all the research which is being carried out, let us say by all the laboratories across, by the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, is the profitability for the farmers. And there are examples, n number of examples where there is profitability of these farmers, income levels have increased.
Profitability of farmers. What about safety of farmers?
No, there could be
but
several
also
other
great losses by farmers.
there could be several other social aspects of it, you know, which are also being dealt with. ICR has started some of the programs like Farmers First. Many other new programs are being initiated. And these are, of course, issues which will crop up all the time again and again.
No, Farmers First, Dr. Bansal, we should keep separate.
No, in the sense
from this issue.
No,
that's a separate
No, the point
program.
what I am saying is that we all concerned about the farmers, their income level, their social life. Even BT cotton, I don't want to go into the details of it, that how much, you know, happiness it has brought to the farmers, you know, in many areas of the country.
And many areas not.
Today, no, but if we talk of the adoption, madam, you know, 95%
but
of
Dr.
our
Bansal,
total
if we talk
Let us talk about the
failures and
scientists only. Can I
successes.
just
Yeah,
add
both.
something about the scientists? You see, I have, as an individual, grown up really respecting Indian scientists, and I believe, I mean, having also worked abroad, I also believe that our scientists are absolutely world class. But when I see this, that they don't understand the sea of conflict of interest, then my heart breaks. You know, when it comes to, let me just complete.
Sure, please.
You know, somebody who is working for Government of India and he is part of a major regulatory kind of committee, within 6 months he writes something here and goes and joins a multinational company. I think there is a major problem there, and I think the Technical Advisory Committee appointed by the Supreme Court, one of the recommendations they gave was on this conflict of interest policy, and I think we have to save ourselves from kind of unscrupulous elements from the scientific community.
Gargi, in fact, you know, you wanted to say something, but no, we are talking of political consensus. Now let us look at the way this whole issue has evolved in this country. Under the NDA government, this whole thing started, and then the UPA government has continued, and with differences within the UPA government. And then when you go to the states, each state has reacted differently to this issue. So where is the political, how do you see a political consensus being evolved on this?
Let me give you just two examples. The Parliamentary Standing Committee, which studied the GM crop situation, gave its own set of recommendations. It had representation of all political parties.
And was it a consensual report?
It was a consensus report that talked about the same things that the technical expert committee has said. And the parliamentary committee report came before the technical expert committee report. So that is one example. The second example is when Mr. Jairam Ramesh was the environment minister, he went into the issue of the commercialization of BT brinjal, which was going to be the first food GM crop to be introduced in our country. There was such an hue and cry about it. He went into the four corners of the country. He spoke to a lot of people, including scientists, NGOs, farmers and everything, and I believe that was an independent first of its kind survey done in our country by a responsible person, a politician.
Right.
Mr. Jairam Ramesh took his decision and went in for a moratorium on this commercialization of BT brinjal. In fact, he went, if I may say so, against his own government in doing so.
Right.
So whenever there has been transparency, whenever there has been independent experts or independent appraisals, people have gone, their conclusion has been mostly against, but they of course put it politely and ask for a moratorium.
Right.
So you can, and the third part to your question, answer to your question is that several states have banned GM crop in their states,
Right.
agriculture being a state subject. We know about Bihar. We know
14 chief ministers wrote saying no.
No,
At
but
the
you
time.
know,
13, I
no, let us look at the way the BJP has approached
About,
this.
no,
one
about
second.
13
Oh, there's
Gujarat,
13
for
chief
instance, for
have said
instance,
no.
Gujarat has supported BT cotton. Madhya Pradesh doesn't support. You know, this is a pattern cutting across party line where, you know,
that is
a
why I keep
political
saying
part-
it is
so
the closeness,
political parties have
closeness
not
of the,
been able to come to a consensus.
It is the
on this.
closeness of the industry with the politicians which dictate the entry of BT into their states.
Okay. Yes, Suman.
No, what I was saying was that if you look at what this technology is supposed to offer, then you have to look at it dispassionately. And that is why I said that it cannot and will not and has not solved the problem of world hunger. BT aubergine or BT brinjal or GM papaya are not food security issues. They can add to my palette of food, but
What
they are
about
not good
wheat,
stuff.
rice?
I think the question also is looking at all of the alternatives that are available to us, all of the options that we have in a biodiverse rich country as we are. All of these options are available for free. The kind of foods that you find in nature that traditional communities and even now communities, including myself, like to pick and eat, that is the tradition that you should support because it does not cost you. A BT plant or a GM plant of some kind is going to cost you large bucks. So where should you be targeting your food security strategy? Reviving, conserving biodiversity, or going in for high tech, high cost, questionable safety products? Having said that, let me also say that in this country, we have to have a completely honest and transparent approach to all technology adoption. Gene Campaign did a study on technology adoption and we find a very nuanced approach. People are now a different generation, they will not accept technology put in from the top. If people don't want the technology, it's not going to fly. You're seeing what's happening with GM
No, we
technology.
have all that what Madam Suman Sai just mentioned, you know, in our own gene banks in India. We have all that material which is indigenously important, you know, for nutrition security, you know, primarily.
No, you're talking.
It
You're
has to
talking
be
of papaya.
available to Ramdeen and
it's
But our
Ganga,
question
not
is
to
about-
the NBPGR
no,
bank.
please listen.
Wheat, rice.
Please
no?
listen,
Yes.
sir. Wheat is also important, which we require today. Rice is also there, it is important, it's available today. But what is the productivity level of that? There are 100 types of, let's say, you know, thousands. We have got 90,000 accessions of rice, for example, 25,000 accessions to 30,000 accessions of wheat. But are they all productive? It is world over the scenario that you go to the level of high productivity. But even if you want to, how many of us are eating today, for example, desi wheat? Are you eating?
Nobody.
Is it available? But the point is,
The
what
point
do you
is
want?
the tragedy
point
is that it's not
point is
available.
What do we want? We want
No,
to
the
survive. We
productivity,
want to
sir,
food
But-
Is
security.
desi wheat good or
No,
bad?
but-
No,
no, it's
according
not.
to you, is
Desi
desi wheat good or bad?
Is wonderful.
Is wonderful.
But
Why?
then, is productivity levels?
No, productivity.
No,
Let
so
me just
increase
tell you
the
about
productivity.
productivity.
No,
Okay.
but-
Increase
we
the
have to-
alternative is not to do
Since we are
GM
talking
wheat.
about productivity, sir.
Can I just- can I
Sure,
just
sure.
say-
I mean, you are a scientist. You
No,
would
no.
understand
just one
SRI,
se-
the
And you have
system of
to-
rice intensification, which has been going on in many parts of India. It is giving us amazing results.
Can I just give you the example of Kala Namak? Because we are doing SRI with Kala Namak. It doubles the production of this very low yielding but very highly prized rice variety. So there are several issues that of
So,
technology.
you know, crop
and on the,
intensification.
I don't
before-
deny the importance of such
No, no,
indigenous
no,
resources.
no,
It's
one
wonderful.
second,
But the
one-
point is, it has
No,
to bring
Mr.
into that
Professor-
kind of a product.
No, Professor
which is
Bansal, my
eaten
no, Professor
mostly.
Bansal, my
But in
question
the
is
bank,
this.
it doesn't
You are
have the
saying
community.
desi wheat is very good for. Now, why is it that the government, the ICAR and things like that, not making enough efforts to ensure that this is available in
You know what?
and
Not
farmers.
only
No, no,
desi
I'll
wheat,
tell
what
you,
about
please,
small
why-
millets? What about
see,
pulses?
pulses,
no research in
maize.
What
this
about
area.
SAG,
No.
which is available for free?
You know,
great,
for
yes.
example, C306 is a drought tolerant, wonderful, good quality wheat. but you know its productivity level. You have to have, today we are talking of 5 to 10 tons per hectare. If it is giving you only 1 to 2 tons per hectare, which farmer will grow?
Can I just
will
also tell you one
harvest
thing?
100 tons of wheat, which we are looking forward to?
We
I think Girish,
so therefore,
we are insulting our farmers when we are talking about GM bringing food security into the country, because we are surplus in food grains today. I remember going to one rally on GM food, and the farmer said, we are being ignored, we are not being given what we want, we have the capacity and the capability to take this country to any heights. After all, 260 million tons has been produced by farmers of this country without GM.
Without GM. And so Professor Sudhir Panwar, you know, this is the debate, this is the issue actually. Now that 260 million tons has been produced without GM. Now, why GM needs to be pushed like this? So, is this just the multinational companies trying to play around with countries and their product and their
profit margin?
You know, or is there a real, or is there an absolute need for GM crops at all?
No, definitely the MNC interest is there. Nobody can deny this. This technology is patented by some companies, and the company has economic interest in India. But if you are talking about the surplus production,
yes,
actually at farmer's level, farmer is interested in the production of his own field, not the country field, because the country production is hardly gives anything to him. He is interested in the maximization of crop at his field, so that he can fetch some money.
So,
Professor
Panwar, at the farmers level, you have been traveling across the country, you meet a lot of farmers. What is the approach of the farmers to this whole issue? Are they convinced to a large extent that this is something which will bring them more yield, more productivity, their economy will improve? Is that how the farmer
Do they know what it is?
No way.
Do they know what it is?
Professor Panwar?
Definitely, they are in search of rather maximization of their production. It is the duty of the scientific or the government bodies who can clear this regulatory affair or clear this GM crop. So farmer always needs some technological improvement.
Farmer needs water.
Okay.
Farmer needs inputs.
Yes.
Farmer needs a good price.
I just wanted to say that, see, this technology is one of the strongest possible available options today to add value, to increase production beyond what if we think we are happy with 260 million tons today, I am surprised. Why can't we think of 300 million tons?
We are in surplus.
Oh, wait a minute.
No, and are we going to be stagnant at that particular level?
A lot of it is eaten by rats and...
No, that's a different issue again. That we need to protect ourselves. Of course, even our own homes, we should not let anything go waste.
Can I just come here on this productivity and the surplus and the increase? 2/3 of Indian agriculture is rain-fed. And then we are producing 260 million tons. You bring water to these 2/3 of rain-fed agriculture, you will be producing 500 million tons. Because where you are taking one crop in a year, you will be taking 2 crops in a year. You don't need a technology, you need
but
water.
Water is not possible everywhere. I mean, let's be realistic.
Why can you not do rainwater harvesting?
Of course
it's possible.
Rainwater harvesting can be done,
possible.
but yes, you can't irrigate entire India. I mean, that's a...
You don't have to irrigate entire India. You have to conserve water
I'm
and make
coming
water
to the same
available.
point. Dr. Sahai, I'm coming to the same point. What I'm saying is that
you don't have to have canals and dams, but
sure,
you can have rainwater tanks.
Yeah, sure. If we strategize on behalf of the small farmer. Now, India, the multitude of people here, the farmers are the ones with 2 to 4 acres of land. Now, he is also a very productive farmer. If you see the productivity of a small farm, I think it's world's best run business.
Of course.
And the entire family works in it, and he is surviving, he is living in that. So, of course, if you give him water, he can do wonders. But if you don't have water, as Gargi earlier said, you have coarse grain, you have rain-fed agricultural pulses, you have sorghums, you have ragis, you have all kinds of, at least 800, 900 varieties of millets in India, which can be grown, which can be nutritious. We can create demand for these things by linking it with midday meal scheme.
They are being allowed to disappear because no minimum support price on them.
No, no
procurement of small millets.
You start procurement of oilseeds, you stop oilseed import.
It's an important point, no doubt, that we need a package. We need all those, core cereals, millets, from food and nutrition security point of view. Similarly, we need a total package of these technologies. We can't simply depend all the time on just one technology. Please remember, in other walks of life, kindly compare the farmer's life with the available technology and other walks of life. Where have we gone with regard to technology? So therefore, any technology at any
they are working. Mobile phones are working.
The point is
weather information you are giving them.
Let the farmer.
The point is, why are scientists not talking about small millets and pulses research?
We are
why
talking.
Are they only
Come to
NBPGR. GM crops?
What I would also.
We are talking about those also.
Nobody is talking.
Yeah. 1 second.
You have a US India knowledge initiative. And which was again another agreement to replace that.
One technology.
No, Madam Gargi, we are talking about
under which you have signed agreement only to get into GM and other kinds of things.
We have a whole institute working on it.
That is why the entire scientific
on sorghum, on millets.
is directed in that direction today.
Okay, Professor Bansal, would you agree that this huge suspicion about this whole technology being pushed through because of only commercial interest, isn't that a very genuine concern which people are expressing?
Suppose if government is pushing this technology, what commercial interest government has? Government interest is only to, really speaking, help the farmers, let him have the advantage or her the advantage of this latest technology. While it is being, of course, in a responsible manner, no doubt about it.
Why, if that is the case, if what Professor Bansal is saying is the case, why is it that there is so much differences within political parties among different states about this technology?
And within the ministries of the government itself.
Yes.
The question is that states who have to deal with their farmers directly instead of with the corporations are tending to say no. Those states, particularly state governments which have engaged with the issue, are tending to say no. And the question is that the farmers themselves have no idea what this technology is. It's coming from there.
Right.
In the question of what farmer technologies mean, the range of technologies is enormous that the farmer knows and farmer requires. We need to support the farmer with upscaling of these technologies and support for these technologies. Harping on productivity is also going to reduce nutrition. There are several studies, as I am sure Dr. Bansal would know, that the more you invest in increasing productivity, the more you deplete the crop of nutrients. So the wheat that you are eating today is a far poorer wheat, and aiming to increase productivity, you are really increasing just calories and no nutrition.
Okay,
so there is a better way
Professor
of looking
Panwar,
at this.
very quick last words to you. You think that there could be some kind of a political consensus on these kind of issues? Do you see that happening at all? Do you see political parties looking at all these objections being raised, concerns being expressed, instead of looking at it only from the point of view of these corporations who would like big market to be allowed, would like this huge market of India for themselves?
I don't think that political consensus will emerge on this, because every politician has its own rather mental block on this issue. Every scientist or every person is having his own views about this technology because it is much discussed, and there are absolute views on this technology. But I can cite the case of UP government. They have written to the central body that please suggest what BT cotton will be helpful in UP, or what BT cotton is suggest for UP. So it is the pressure of the farmer, or it is the pressure of the production maximization that they are forced to write. Otherwise, UP government always oppose this technology.
Okay, Vipul, very quick last words to you. Pressure of the farmer, is that something finally going to decide this? What will happen to this technology? Another very important thing is about the regulatory issues, which we have not discussed enough. But do you think that there needs to be a completely new, renewed, fresh debate in this country about the regulatory mechanism also?
I think we left the issue to the experts, and we are not very happy about it. I think you can't leave the issue of war to generals. the country has to, topiwalas have to decide.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I mean, they might know very little about war, but they take very good decisions. So in the same way, I'm saying it's become a political thing. PMO is directly involved. Two ministries are like loggerheads on this. So I think the country has to decide, and the regulatory mechanism has to be from the point of view of human health and the small farmer. If we do that, we are safe. Okay. And nothing against technology. We should welcome technology, but on our terms.
Very quickly, sir.
No, I just wanted to only say that we must try every effort to arrive at the political consensus on this issue, because it's a technology which India will not really afford to lag behind, and we should rather come out as a powerful nation using such technology.
Okay, I think on that note we have to, and it has been a very interesting debate, several issues involved, no consensus as far as most of the issues, but it is these kind of debates hopefully which will finally lead to some kind of a consensus in the larger national interest. Thanks to all my guests, Professor Sudhir Panwar from Lucknow, Gargi Parsai, Vipul Mudgal, Professor Bansal and Suman Sahai. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another big picture special on the elections next week.